I guess we should go ahead and talk about the main topic that is being talked about now, which is Iran, right? And I realize that the topic of Iran, the one-way war that Iran has had with us, has been going on for decades. So I'm going to have to start somewhere, and I don't want to start way back in time. So I'm going to start essentially December 31st, when they attacked our embassy. All right? Now, when I say they've been at war with us for decades, I mean that they've been basically engaged in what's often called a proxy war, where they have their so-called militia groups or terrorist groups that will attack our troops at different areas or attack others without ever engaging in a direct war. You don't ever have, like, for instance, Iran, directly attacking the United States. But you do have Iran attacking our troops over in Iraq, or basically throughout the region, if you think about it. Anyway, that attack at our embassy in Iraq has been downplayed by the media just a tad. And by that I mean a lot. They act like it was protesters who were outside the embassy, as if they were there with signs, waving signs like, "We hate you," or something. That's not it. And if you look at the pictures that have come out, showing you the actual damage to the US embassy, I mean, this is one of the buildings, and they burnt it down. I mean, they were trying to kill the people in the embassy, and they were trying to, burn the place down. There's no other way to see this. You can't look at this and go, "Oh, look, there were some protesters." I don't even look at this and say there were rioters. They were terrorists who were trying to kill our people on our soil. This, and here's another picture. Oh, look, it looks like it's been destroyed. These aren't protesters. I mean, if these were Antifa who did this kind of damage, you'd say the same thing. You wouldn't call them protesters, actually. Let's be honest, CNN probably would. But a reasonable person would not. Okay? These were, as far as I'm concerned, enemy combatants who were trying to kill our people on what is our soil. And I think that our response to that was incredibly measured. I mean, the fact that we had our Marines there and they were there with rubber bullets, that's really generous. If you look at this sort of damage, I mean, they're trying to kill our people and we're like there with tear gas and rubber bullets. Yeah, I think that's actually really restrained. So then, after that, let's see, on January 3rd, right, that's when we killed Soleimani. He was the second most powerful guy in Iran. And he was there in Iraq. And Iraq is what we consider to be kind of like our area, something of a war zone. And this is, remember I was saying that we've been fighting a proxy war with Iran, so we don't ever shoot into Iran, they don't ever shoot into the United States, but both tend to kill each other on Iraqi soil. And this is what we did, because the guy was kind of like flaunting himself by just even being there. And we took the opportunity after they had attacked our embassy and after they killed an American contractor. Yeah. The day after that, on January 4th, we then also attacked some Iran-backed Iraqi militias. So again, those little terrorist factions, we killed some of those, or killed 6. Specifically, and that was less covered by the media. A lot more attention was given to Soleimani's death, because that was a bigger deal strategically speaking. Now, I don't really see either of these things as a bad thing. And I say that even though I don't want to see endless war in the Middle East. I don't think anybody here tonight probably does. But Iran has been fighting a one-way war against us for some time, confident that we would never fight back. In fact, Soleimani specifically sent messages to Trump, "You can't do anything." That was one of the messages that he sent 18 months ago to Trump, "You can't do anything." And that pretty much sums up the way Iran has been treating us, because ever since, we had Obama as our head who, had no red line, other countries, including Iran, have been acting like they can do whatever they want and there won't be a response. And they just engage in this guerrilla warfare, basically, against us, expecting that we'd never that we'd never fight back, either because Trump would be afraid of the Democrats here who would complain, or that he would be afraid of, European cowards whining over there at any response that he gives. Now, I do want to draw your attention for a minute to what happened after Soleimani's death, which was the raising of a flag, right, over in Iran to indicate that they wanted vengeance. I'm sorry. They raised a red flag over their mosque to indicate that they were going to get vengeance. Now, to put this into perspective, imagine, if, I don't know, the First Baptist Church in your town raises its blood-red flag of vengeance because the United States are going to war. Can you imagine? That's what happened over in Iran. It's, difficult to fathom, what? Not only does Iran have a flag of vengeance, which, is kind of out there, but they put it on their mosques, guys. Does that not tell you everything you need to know about Islam? It's imagine Jesus saying, "Bring the infidels unto me, lest, let me smite them." I mean, that's what we're talking about. It's difficult to even get into the head of a country that's we've got our red flag of vengeance. And by the way, since we are talking about them putting their flag of vengeance, or flag of war if you like, on top of their mosques, you have to ask yourself, well, are the mosques really religious sites at that point? Because a lot of media attention was given to the fact that Trump said that he would be willing to bomb cultural sites, and the Geneva Convention says you can't attack religious sites. Well, is a mosque a religious site when you think about them raising the red flag of vengeance on top of it? At that point, it's not really. It's a military recruitment site, or a jihadi recruitment site, and in Iran, there is no distinction any longer between the church, the military, and the state. There isn't. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of their system. It is a religious state if Islam can be called a religion. And, this whole thing about how we're supposed to be terrified of the idea that we would break an international law, right? Well, Iran breaks international law on a very regular basis. Every time they murder an apostate, you see, in Iran it's a crime to be a Christian. In Iran it's most certainly a death sentence to switch from Islam to Christianity. Now, I will tell you that freedom of religion is built into international law, so that, governments are required to allow their people some freedom of religion, including the freedom to switch religion. Iran does not do that. Iran regularly violates international law. And yet we're just supposed to be no, we don't want to hit the mosque of vengeance because it's such a holy site or something. I mean, I couldn't help but just roll my eyes at that, really. And then, you look at Iran, and it's not just their flag of vengeance, it's the way that they chant death to America. Here, if we were going to war, and let's just say everybody was up in arms, yeah, let's go to war, we hate whatever country, right? What our people would chant was something like USA. That's what our people would chant. Not, death to whoever. It's just it's a completely different mindset. And you look at them, here they are in their parliament, chanting death to America. I mean, isn't that just surreal? I mean, again, I can understand it even getting worked up and, maybe a bit bloviated over the idea of a war, but you would generally, in this country at least, chant in favor of your own country, not death to wherever. It's just, totally different. And I get a lot of people are opposed to fighting Iran. And to those of you who are completely opposed to it, I have to ask, is there a red line for you? I mean, consider this, because for some of the people that I've seen, there appears to be no red line. There appears to be nothing that Iran could do in order to justify our retaliation, our response. And that's difficult for me to imagine. See, with the left, the people on the left who are opposed to any sort of response to Iran, well, they're opposed to it because they hate Trump, and they're opposed to it because they're afraid that it will helped Trump to win the election because, wars happen to do that. Those on the right, you do have some just kind of anti-war absolutists, that's what I'm going to go ahead and call them, and they seem to find nothing that would actually justify war or punishment. And that just, I don't mean to be demeaning here, but it just seems like the foreign policy of like a 5-year-old. The whole, well, war is bad, no matter what. And it's like, well, yeah, war is bad, but there is a point at which doing nothing can be a greater evil, at which appeasement can be. This was the concept of just war that was, that they came up with during the Crusades, actually. Surely there has to be a line, and, well, they've been killing our people, so I think they've kind of crossed the line at which, we're free to respond and kill their terrorist leader. And then you've got those people who are like, well, Soleimani, he fought ISIS, and therefore he's just some great guy. It's like, he wasn't a terrorist fighter. I mean, he didn't like ISIS, but he worked to prop up his own terrorists in various countries, like throughout the world, and especially throughout the Middle East. But, it's like, where does that even come from? And they end up defending this guy who described Sunni migrants to Europe as subhuman filth. That was his phrase, and the left are defending him about how he was a great poet. This was a guy who praised Hitler, a guy who was behind the 1979 Iran hostage crisis. For those who don't know, that's when Iran took 52 of our people, our American citizens, and held them for roughly a year and a half. Yeah, he was behind that. We got them back like minutes after Reagan got into power. This guy, Soleimani, was also the architect of the Iran militia policy, as it's often called, but the guerrilla warfare, terrorism, outpost policy, right, of just attacking in small ways but never launching a full-scale war. This was his genius idea. So-called militias throughout the Arab world, that was all on him. He isn't a terrorist fighter, he's a terrorist leader. But our left seems to cheer on the terrorist from other countries when we go to war. Oh gosh, and now the Iraqi parliament has voted to expel US forces. I assume that you guys have heard about that, which allows us to now leave Iraq if we actually want to, which would be kind of comical. I know Trump did actually want to get out of Iraq, but it does serve as a place to kind of stand in if we are going to fight with Iran. But Iran is also, and I think this is easy to forget, but it's in a state of perpetual unrest with its own people. The people of Iran are in servitude, and they have been since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. They have no rights. If you can look up, they don't have guns, they don't have any ability to really fight against their own government. So if we did go to war with Iran, it could be something as simple as taking out their infrastructure, say their power and communications, etc., and letting the people do the rest, letting the people take their country back. But again, because it's actually the long name is the Islamic Republic of Iran, right? It's not just Iran, we just get used to calling it that because it's short. But it is the Islamic Republic of Iran. And so you have this, frankly, evil religion built into the government. There is no separation of church and state. And if you look inside of Christian doctrine, which obviously I think is a better religion, a real religion, I would say, but anyway, you have things like render unto Caesar what belongs to him, right? You have things like my kingdom is not of this world, which is what the Christ said. You have these distinctions between essentially church and state, these separations. That's not to say that you don't want a Christian people and Christian morals, but there is always some separation there between church and government, and that works out well. But in Islam, it's a totally different thing. You see, like Christianity is there, and it talks about saving the soul, right? Islam, its very name means subjugation. So its plan isn't, to help the individual, and the soul and all of that. Its plan is to rule the world. I mean, if you read the Quran, if you read the Hadith, that's what it's about, is world domination. And so what you have in these entirely Islamic countries is subjugation, is a totalitarian hellholes. And the more Islamic the country, the more tyrannical. You can plot it on a graph, I'm telling you. And if you look at the photos pre-1979, pre the Islamic Revolution, I'm just going to call it that, you see a very different country, and it's kind of sad, actually. But here we're at the Daily Mail, and they put some pictures together for us. So you look at it, and you think about Iran today and the headscarves and everything, and then you look back, and it's like, it's just a very different, well, it's a modern country, modern by 70 standards. It doesn't look altogether that different from what you'd see in Western countries around the same time. But you look at it now, and they're behind and backward, and, well, they're not free. Yeah, I see someone in the chat said, I see ankle. Yeah, exactly. But you look and it's like, it just seems like something has been lost, right? And it really has. It was lost. Essentially, I think a culture was lost. And so many people. So it's really sad. This is more like today, actually, but All right, that'll do us for now. I think you can look into the more pictures from, pre the revolution, and it's really, truly sad because, well, Iran was a civilized, pretty happy nation, and then, it fell into the descent of Islam. And I think Soleimani's demise is really just the end of a one-way war with Iran. Some call it a proxy war or guerrilla war, but either way, we weren't really fighting back, and now we are, and I don't think that's a bad thing. The Democrats are saying that it's impeachable that we're fighting back. Like Trump being commander-in-chief is itself like some grounds of impeachment. I think that's just hilarious. Trump actually denied Iran's top diplomat a visa so that he could go to the UN meeting and complain and chant death to America or something while standing on our soil. It's like he can go do that in Iran. I think was basically our policy. We can't chant death to Iran on Iranian soil. I don't see why the opposite should be true, frankly. And if you've seen those pictures, right, of the funeral procession and all the people in mourning for the guy, for Soleimani, you seen those? And I was going to show it, but I'm not going to, because I think it would be just wrong. But there are videos out there of people being shot for refusing to mourn. This happened especially in Iraq. The Iranian militias, their guerrilla groups, fired on people who were celebrating Soleimani's death. Because remember, Soleimani is a terrorist leader who's killed thousands of people. And so some were actually glad that this monster was dead. And Iranian groups fired at them. So yeah, when you see those long, those long funeral processions and these big crowds show up, don't assume that everyone's there because they want to be there. It's kind of like when Kim Jong-il died, right? And you had all those different people weeping in the streets. I mean, sure, some of them are really brainwashed, but others are just afraid not to show up. It's like, just don't forget what a totalitarian hellhole it is. Let's see. Deploribus unum. Persian women are very pretty when they're allowed to show themselves. Yeah, I mean, they seem like, frankly, like I said, they look like fairly nice, civilized people back when they could be. But I think we should be decisive, and I think Trump was right to be when he took the action that he did. On Tuesday night, last night, our bases were obviously attacked, although our people had already been removed. So our bases in Iraq, 2 of them, were shot at by missiles. None of our people died, or as far as we know, were injured. And while that was happening, while it was happening, MSNBC decided to give the Iranian perspective of the attack from state media. you had the state Iranian media saying 30 Americans are dead. Like they were celebrating, right? Because it's Iran, and that's what they do. And then MSNBC decides, whilst it's still happening, to go on and talk about how great that was or something. Repeat it and be like, well, it may not be true because it's the state media, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I mean, talk about enemy of the people, So...
Second wave of rocket attacks have been launched from Iran. The IRGC was saying that Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of this country, was in the control center coordinating these attacks. This bit I'm not sure about, but Iran state media is claiming that 30 U.S. soldiers have been killed in this attack. Now, this is not confirmed.
I mean, really? It's like, if you don't know, then maybe you shouldn't report what the Iranian media is saying. I mean, they called him to the supreme leader, Ayatollah. I mean, supreme leader, was that really necessary? I get the guy standing in Iran, but I mean, at some point, there's a little bias, maybe, like, against us. If you can't say what you need to say, then get off the air and let somebody who can say what needs to be said. Seriously, it's like enemy of the people, and they complain that they're called that. But it seems like when they go on and they report that there are 30 American deaths when there aren't any, then there's some kind of, well, it seems like that they're happy about the fact, like it's what our media wanted, because they're like treacherous bastards. And, it's like, you see our media do stuff like this, and you have to wonder, or actually you have to know, like McCarthy was right. People can complain about McCarthy and use McCarthyism like a slur, but he was right when he said that communism had infected academia and Hollywood and our media. And because he was right, and he's still right, we see treacherous people on the news all the time. I hate the way people use McCarthyism like a slur, because, I mean, it's like, you look back and you look now and you're like, well, was he wrong? Don't think you can say that he was. Anyway, then, last night, actually a couple of different things happened. First, you had, the plane that took off, the Ukrainian plane that was shot out of the sky. I'm just going to go ahead and say that it was shot out of the sky. Iran is claiming that the plane had technical difficulties. They're still going with that. But even last night when we looked at it, it was like you see this plane in the sky and it's on fire as it comes descending down. It seemed pretty clear that it wasn't just technical difficulties, and here's it on fire as it goes down, and hopefully those people didn't have any suffering, but I mean, there we go. Yeah, I'm not going to show the whole thing, but it's like, that's not a computer error. Yeah, it malfunctioned all right when a missile hit it. And the Jordan press was saying already at the time, that's the country of Jordan, by the way, was already saying that they thought it had been hit by an Iranian anti-missile system. Yeah, so it was taken down, and now Iran is refusing to hand over their black box data from the plane, because we know what it would say, but there's that. Apparently there were 63 Canadians on board, which is really tragic. It really is. It would seem that they also killed a bunch of their own people, because there were mostly actually Iranians, and more Iranians than the other group anyway, on board, which means that they killed more Iranians than we did, if you think about it. But anyway, Trump is now urging and saying that he's going to add economic sanctions. You know who's upset about the fact that we're adding economic sanctions? Ilhan Omar, because she's just a little bit predictable. Here she is. This makes no sense. Sanctions are economic warfare. They have already caused medical shortages and countless deaths in Iran. You cannot claim to want de-escalation and then announce new sanctions with no clear goal. This is not a measured response. Remember, they launched missiles at our bases, and she thinks economic sanctions is just too far. This, by the way, is someone who loves economic sanctions up against Israel. She's like really into the BDS movement, which is all about sanctioning Israel. But no, you can't sanction Iran, because it's such a lovely country. Yeah. And there were also 2 earthquakes last night. in Iran that were close to a power plant. And I did some checking on this last night, and let me just actually pull up my own thing here because I forgot to pull this up. Yeah, it's bizarre when I'm pulling up my own Twitter, but I did check this out last night, and this is what people were reporting over in Iran. Let's see, here we are. I made this screenshot from a site all about earthquakes, and people were reporting, here we go, it was an explosion and a giant burst of light. Next one, maybe not earthquake, US bombing. Next one, this is either Trump or God telling us we are evil. Time to remove the mullahs before they have Iran wiped out. Next one says energy weapon. Next one, let's see if I can just... There we go. Next one, saw a bright flashing light followed by lots of shaking. Next one, it felt like bomb, no earthquake, God help us. Next one, this was not an earthquake, explosion and shockwave, it nightmare. So it means it's a nightmare. So there's some doubt to whether or not there was actual earthquakes. And by the way, I don't know how many of you guys know about this, but back in World War II, we actually had what was called an earthquake bomb. I think some people called it a seismic bomb, but we used it to take down this like major bridge over in Germany. I can't remember the name of the bridge, but it was influential and it was so small, and our planes couldn't get low enough to be able to accurately hit it. So we kept missing it. So we had this earthquake bomb. It's this really heavy bomb that like essentially span. And so when it hit the ground, it would like spin into the ground deep, and then it would explode, causing essentially an earthquake that would cause the bridge to topple, and it actually worked. And so I'm just speculating here that something like that could have been done. Anyway, that is that. But I think that's about all I have to say on Iran at the moment, but there is just like so much to it, and I'm just tired of hearing leftists talk about how great Soleimani was, and even those on the right talk about how any response to these evil people is somehow immoral. I think that there is such a thing as a just war. A war where it is a more moral thing than not engaging at all. I think there is and with Iran, knowing that their people are largely in a state of servitude makes it even more so, because ultimately we could result in actually freeing those people from their evil leadership. And, you know, every year or so they have their own little attempt at a mini revolution, but as I said, they're like disarmed. They have nothing with which to fight. And so it's just a really tragic situation over there. And I don't think it's over. We just, you know, are setting up economic sanctions. I'm sure they will get all irate about that, and this will continue to escalate from here. Don't leave yet. Remember to like and share the video. And if you want to be reliably notified of new videos, sign up for my newsletter. Also, if you'd like to support the production of these videos, I'd appreciate it if you supported me over at Subscribestar, or you can buy one of our Healthwise healthier products, or you can even get yourself some merch.